I'd spent 5 years playing the role of the silent, reliable ATM for my family, but I didn't realize the extent of their entitlement until I saw that text. I'm quitting my job. You'll support us while I find myself. My sister, Willow, was demanding a sabbatical funded entirely by me, without so much as a discussion. She thought my high-paying job in tech meant I had an endless, responsibility-free cash reserve for her spiritual journey. She didn't realize the quiet mortgage payments I made every month were the strings on the puppet, and I was about to cut them all. When she finally understood my simple, 3-word reply, "Not my responsibility," it wasn't just a rejection. It was the start of a structural, legal act of revenge that left her and my enabling mother completely exposed and homeless in a housing market they couldn't possibly afford. My name is Amelia Reed, and for most of my adult life, I was defined by my family as the Rock, a term that sounds complimentary, but which, in our dynamic, was code for the resource we can reliably exploit. I'm 34, a senior software engineer at a big tech company, and while my salary puts me in the top tier of earners in the competitive Seattle area, I've always lived modestly. Not because I'm frugal, but because for the last 5 years, my paycheck has subsidized the lifestyle of my mother, Eleanor, and my younger sister, Willow. Willow, 28, was the true golden child. She was creative, sensitive, and destined for greatness, none of which translated into employment longer than 6 months. She tried being a barista, a yoga instructor, and most recently, a social media manager for a boutique crystal shop. All jobs she abandoned the second they required actual effort or accountability. My burden started 5 years ago, right after I got my first major promotion. My mother, Eleanor, a master manipulator and chronic enabler, called me with tearful news. The small house they had been renting in a desirable Seattle suburb was being sold, and they needed to move immediately. The rental market was insane, and Eleanor, who worked part-time at a library, claimed she was too overwhelmed to handle the stress. I, feeling that deep, visceral responsibility that only the family Rock understands, stepped in. I found a charming 3-bedroom duplex in a bustling suburb, close enough to the city for my work, but far enough to be quiet. I put down the massive down payment and secured the mortgage, putting the title entirely in my name. A move my lawyer later called prescient, but which at the time felt like an act of weary resignation. My mother and sister were to pay me rent, a fraction of the mortgage payment, plus utilities. Naturally, they never did. The rent payments were sporadic, and the utilities were always late. I ended up paying everything, every month, treating the house as my largest, most draining investment. I kept this burden quiet, working punishing hours and taking on freelance consulting gigs to cover the expenses without dipping into my savings. Meanwhile, Willow and Eleanor lived a life of subsidized comfort, filling the house with bohemian clutter and constantly complaining about the poor quality of the appliances I was funding. Willow once told me the expensive Bosch dishwasher I bought was too loud for her meditation sessions. The irony was suffocating. My mother, Eleanor, instead of encouraging Willow to work, constantly shielded her, reinforcing her entitlement. "You know Willow is delicate, Amelia," she'd sigh over the phone when I confronted her about late payments. "She needs space to discover her art. Your job is so stable. A little help is the least you can do." The emotional manipulation was relentless. My success was a weapon they used to justify their failures. About 6 months ago, my professional life changed everything. A multinational tech firm, based primarily in Switzerland, offered me a senior director role overseeing their entire global cloud infrastructure migration. The compensation was astronomical, offering me real financial independence for the first time. The catch? The role required an immediate move to Zurich. This was my escape route, the hard reset I desperately needed. I signed the contract, secured my visa, and started quietly prepping my personal affairs. I kept this monumental change a secret, a loaded gun aimed at the heart of their entitlement. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I was on a conference call, reviewing the complexities of Swiss real estate tax law, when my phone vibrated with a text message that stopped my heart. It wasn't from my mother. It was a group text from Willow, sent simultaneously to me and Eleanor. Willow, 2:17 p.m. Big news. I'm quitting my job at the crystal shop today. Toxic environment, Zero appreciation. I need a proper sabbatical, maybe 6 months, possibly a year, to really focus on my photography and find my true purpose. Amelia, you'll cover the entire mortgage, utilities, and insurance for both of us while I find myself. Don't worry, you can easily afford it. Mom can handle the food budget. Right, Mom? The sheer, breathtaking audacity of the message hit me like a physical blow. Not a request, but an impersonal group text demand for full, long-term financial sponsorship. I ended the conference call abruptly, my hands shaking not with rage, but with a cold, terrifying calm. I finally saw the truth. They didn't view me as a sister or a daughter. I was a structural component of their existence, an irreplaceable utility, like the furnace or the main water line. I typed out a reply, erasing several drafts that involved screaming, before landing on one that was perfectly neutral, yet utterly devastating. Amelia, 2:25 p.m. Not my responsibility. The subsidies end now. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Eleanor called me within 30 seconds. Amelia, what is the meaning of this? You cannot just abandon your sister. She's fragile. You know she needs this time to heal and explore her potential. This is the home you bought us. You have a moral obligation. My moral obligation is to myself, Mom. I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I pay for a house I don't live in, for 2 adults who refuse to contribute to its maintenance or mortgage. That arrangement is terminated. You are cold-hearted. Eleanor wailed, resorting to the familiar guilt trip. After everything we've done for you, this will crush Willow. She can find work, I stated simply, ending the call. Willow, of course, was too busy being crushed to reply directly. Instead, she posted a lengthy, passive-aggressive story on Instagram about toxic expectations and choosing liberation over capitalization. She conveniently ignored my texts asking her to confirm her half of the mortgage payment for the upcoming month. But the final, infuriating act of entitlement came 2 days later. Willow, without asking me or even informing Eleanor, moved her shiftless, unemployed boyfriend, Kai, into the house. Kai, a 30-year-old musician who slept until noon, represented not just an additional financial burden, more utilities, more wear and tear, but a complete lack of respect for the property and me. He was another leech added to the host. When I saw his dirty, cheap motorcycle parked on the front lawn in an unsolicited photo my mother sent me, he helps with chores, dear. I knew it was time for the nuclear option. I immediately contacted my real estate agent, Robert. Robert was a blunt, professional operator. Robert, I instructed him, I need to sell the duplex. Fast. I need it staged and listed by next week. The international transfer is confirmed, and I need this asset liquidated to finalize my investment strategy for Zurich. No diles, no exceptions. The house sale wasn't just revenge, it was a required legal component of my massive relocation. A highly leveraged maneuver that necessitated the rapid, clean sale of all my U.S. assets. Any interference would genuinely jeopardize my new job, a detail that served as my emotional and legal shield. The papers moved quickly. Seattle real estate was hot, and the market was ripe. While Willow was posting artistic black and white photos of herself journaling, in the living room I paid for, I was signing listing agreements and authorizing open houses. A week after my ultimatum, I drove over to the house for the first time in 6 months. I pulled into the driveway, past Kai's eyesore of a motorcycle, and used my key. The key they clearly thought was just a symbolic gesture. They were all gathered in the living room. Eleanor was knitting, Willow was scrolling through her phone, and Kai was sprawled on the couch, watching a sports game with the volume too high. The house was a mess, dirty dishes stacked in the sink, Willow's art supplies covering the dining table, and the general stale air of neglect. Amelia, you're here. Eleanor chirped, sounding relieved, assuming my sudden appearance meant I was relenting. I was just telling Willow you'd come to your senses. I ignored Eleanor. I stood in the center of the living room, holding a briefcase. The silence was heavy as I let my eyes sweep over the 3 of them. The 3 people who had drained my resources and emotional energy for half a decade. I'm not here to negotiate or to come to my senses, I stated, my voice low and steady. I'm here to inform you of a structural change. I placed the briefcase on the messy dining table and opened it, pulling out 3 perfectly stacked documents. Willow, you informed me you quit your job and demanded I support you indefinitely. My reply was clear. Not my responsibility. Your failure to provide any rent, combined with your unauthorized introduction of a new non-contributing tenant, I nodded pointedly at Kai, who squirmed on the couch, constitutes a breach of our occupancy agreement. I slid the first document across the table. It was a formal stamped notice of eviction, a 30-day legal notice, detailing their non-payment of agreed-upon utilities and rent. Eleanor gasped, snatching the paper. This is insane. You can't do this. This is your mother's home. No, Mom, I said, sliding the second document, a ratified purchase and sale agreement, across the table. This is my home. I bought it, I funded it, and I own it outright. And I just sold it. The world seemed to stop. Willow finally looked up from her phone, her delicate features contorted in disbelief. Sold it? What are you talking about? The house is officially under contract. Closing is in 35 days, I said, meeting her frantic gaze with cool finality. The 30-day eviction notice gives you time to vacate before the mandatory final walkthrough. Your cooperation is legally required, as my real estate agent and the buyer's agent will begin showing the property next week. Willow jumped up, her fragility momentarily forgotten, her voice sharp with panic. But, where are we supposed to go? You can't just displace us. I have my spiritual journey. What about your family? You're supposed to help us. My help ended when you treated me like a guaranteed safety net, I retorted. As for your spiritual journey, I highly recommend finding a job to fund it. As for where you will go, that is now your responsibility, not mine. Eleanor, recovering her manipulative stride, played her last, desperate card. The shame of this. The neighbors. I will tell everyone what a cruel, heartless daughter you are. I will ruin your professional reputation. I will go to the papers. I smiled, a genuine, cold smile that didn't reach my eyes. I pulled out the final document, my senior director employment contract with the Swiss firm. You can certainly try, Mom. But you should know that the funds from this house sale are collateral. My new contract, which includes a 7-figure compensation package and global responsibilities, is leveraged against the rapid liquidation of my U.S. assets. Any attempt by you or Willow to impede this sale, any legal challenges, public drama, or attempts to squat, will cause me to default on my new contract. I will lose everything. I paused, allowing the gravity of the situation to sink in. And if I lose everything, Eleanor, you will lose the only person in this family capable of paying for anything more than minimum wage. The moment you cause this sale to fail, I go broke. And then, there will be no one left to rescue you or Willow ever again. The air went out of their sails. Their entire game relied on my continued financial stability. My success was the leash they held. Now my success was the wrecking ball. They knew in that moment that pushing me any further meant their complete ruin. I picked up my briefcase, my mission accomplished. The first showing is Friday at 4 p.m. Have the house spotless. I turned, walked out, and never looked back. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of staging, viewings, and frantic, venomous text messages from Willow, all of which I ignored. The closing went through seamlessly. I wired the proceeds into my new Swiss account, finalized my resignation from my technical writer facade, and bought a one-way ticket. I settled into my new life in Zurich. The mountains, the efficiency, the quiet. It was a world away from the suffocating neediness of my family. I heard, indirectly, that Willow and Eleanor had been forced to move into a cramped, overpriced 2-bedroom apartment, paying rent that almost consumed Eleanor's entire part-time salary. Willow, unable to find an affordable living situation, was forced to take a grueling job managing logistics at a local warehouse. She was working 60 hours a week for the first time in her life. Kai, predictably, vanished the second the free housing ended. 3 months into my new glorious existence, I received one final, desperate text message from Willow late one evening. Willow, 2:34 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hate my life. It's all your fault. I miss the house. I miss Mom. You abandoned us when we needed you most. How could you be so selfish? I looked out my window at the breathtaking view of the Alps, reflecting on the peace that finally permeated my life. I allowed myself one last, satisfying moment of closure. Amelia, 8:34 a.m. Central European Time. You define my help as a right, not a gift. Now you are responsible for your own life. Good luck, Willow. I blocked her number, then blocked my mother's. The rock was finally free of the parasitic moss that had been choking it for years, and the structural integrity of my life was stronger than ever. The subsidies had officially ended.